Americans are the best consumers on the planet. The phone in your hand, the clothes on your back, the furniture, the screen on the wall, the boxes in your closet, the gadgets in your drawer that you haven't touched in a year. We assume buying all this is normal. We assumed that being surrounded by thousands of manufactured objects is just how humans live. We think it is the natural result of progress, but it isn't. This is a design, it's a script. We usually call this consumerism. We treat it like a bad habit. We think we just need a little more willpower or that we're just a little bit too greedy. But this actually misses the point entirely. You are not greedy, you are engineered. So today, I'm going to show you the blueprints of that machine. I'm going to show you the specific moment in history when the American citizen was replaced by the American consumer. I'm going to show you the math on how the system keeps you broke. To understand why you buy, we have to go back to 1945. World War II ends, the guns go silent. For 4 years, American factories ran 24/7 building tanks and planes. Everyone had a job. The economy was on fire. Then the war stops, the government cancels the orders. Washington faces a terrifying realization. If the factories stop, the consumers come home to unemployment lines and the Great Depression returns. They have massive production, but demand just vanished, and they needed a new buyer to replace the war, and so they look at you. But there is a problem. The 1945 American is a saver. They lived through the Depression. They repair socks, they fix toasters. They buy houses with cash. They shop for survival and not fun. And to save the factories, business leaders had to destroy that mindset. They had to replace a culture of thrift with a culture of waste. And retail analyst Victor Lebeau wrote the manifesto in 1956. He said, "We need things consumed, burned up, worn out, replaced, and discarded at an ever-increasing pace." But how do you make a frugal person wasteful? You have to hack their brain. And enter Edward Bernays. He is the father of public relations and Sigmund Freud's nephew. He took Freud's ideas about the unconscious and applied them to sales. If you sell to the need, sales stop. If you sell to the want, you can sell forever. And he proved it in 1929. At the time, women didn't smoke. It was taboo. So Bernays hired debutantes to light up during the Easter parade in New York. He gave the press a headline. He didn't call them cigarettes, he called them torches of freedom. He linked a deadly product to women's rights. He made smoking a symbol of rebellion, and sales exploded. And this became the blueprint. You don't buy a truck, you buy masculinity. You don't buy a purse, you buy status. And they stopped selling goods and started selling feelings. And feelings are expensive because they are unstable. You have to keep buying just to keep feeling. Let's leave the history and look at the damage this does to your bank account today. The system relies on you not understanding the difference between an asset and a liability. And this is the fundamental trap of consumer finance. And here is the simple definition. An asset puts money in your pocket. Think stocks, bonds, rental property, a business. And a liability takes money out of your pocket. So think a car, a boat, a subscription. And the American dream is built on convincing you that liabilities are assets. Let's look at the data. According to Edmunds, nearly 1 in 6 Americans financing a new car is now paying over $1,000 a month. Just think about that. They are paying a mortgage payment to drive a depreciating box of metal. And by the time they pay off that loan in 7 years, they will have paid over $80,000 for a car that will be worth $25,000. They did not buy an asset, they bought a liability that is eating their financial future alive. And this is the price of consumerism. It's the difference between being broke and being free. And this applies to everything. We are tricked into lifestyle inflation. You get a promotion, you get a raise. You should be getting richer, right? But for most Americans, a raise just means they spend more. You move to a nicer apartment, you eat at nicer restaurants, you buy the premium brand, and your expenses rise to meet your income. You see people making 200 grand a year, living paycheck to paycheck. They have golden handcuffs, they look rich, they have the Benz, they have the watch, but they have zero net worth. And they are one missed paycheck away from disaster. And real wealth is not what you spend. Real wealth is what you keep. The consumer culture focuses entirely on the appearance of wealth. It tricks you into thinking that spending equals having money. But instead, it's the opposite. Every dollar you spend is a dollar you no longer have. To keep the GDP line going up, companies need you to buy things more than once. If you buy a vacuum cleaner in the last 30 years, that is bad for the economy and the company goes out of business. Instead, they need things to break, and this is called planned obsolescence. And today, this is the standard. Your phone battery starts to die after 2 years, your laptop slows down, these software updates make your old hardware unusable, and the repair costs more than a new device. And from a finance perspective, this is a disaster for your wallet. It is the Boots theory of socioeconomic unfairness. And the theory goes like this. If you buy a $40 pair of boots that falls apart every year, in 10 years, you spend $400. If you buy a $50 pair of boots that last 10 years, you spend $150. That means the cheap consumer goods are actually the most expensive. But the system pushes the cheap stuff. It pushes the new stuff. It pushes the disposable stuff. And it drains your wealth by 1,000 cuts. You are constantly replacing the inventory of your life. You are running on a treadmill of junk. And then came the internet and the smartphone, and this put the consumer machine on steroids. In the old days, you had friction. If you wanted to buy a TV, you had to get in your car. You had to drive to the store. You had to walk to the aisles. You had to wait in line. And that friction gave you time to think. It gave your rational brain a chance to ask, do I really need this? And now, that friction is gone. You can buy a mattress while you are sitting on the toilet. You can buy a TV while you are waiting for the bus. And one-click ordering removed the barrier between impulse and action. But it's not just the ease of purchase, it's the surveillance. In the old days, advertisers had to guess. They put a billboard on the highway and hoped that you liked it. And now, they don't guess, they know. Companies track your every move. They know what you search for, they know how long you look at a picture, and they know your location. And they use this data to find your weak spots. If you are feeling lonely at night, the algorithm knows. It serves you an ad for a dating app or a comfort item. If you are feeling insecure about your body, the algorithm, it knows. And it shows you diet pills or gym clothes. They are selling you products. They are also mining your psychology. And they have introduced new financial weapons to help you destroy yourself. Look at the buy now pay later services like Affirm, Klarna, and Afterpay. And these tools are designed to break the psychology of spending. When you spend $200 in cash, it hurts. You feel the pain of paying. And when you click a button that says 4 easy payments of $50, it doesn't hurt. It feels free and it feels like a savvy financial move. But it isn't. It's debt. It's a psychological trick to get you to overextend yourself. It encourages you to leverage your future labor for present pleasure. And this creates this loop. You feel stressed, often from work. You buy something to feel better. The dopamine hits. You go into debt with credit cards or buy now pay later. That means you have to work harder to pay the debt. You feel more stress and then you buy more things. And the financial sector loves the loop. They want you to make the minimum payment. They want you to stay in debt forever. And your debt is their asset, and your interest payments are their profit. But the thing is, given all of this, you can still win. And here are 3 things to break the loop. First, price everything in hours. So don't look at the price tag. Look at the time, and specifically your time. If you make $20 per hour, a $1,000 phone costs you 50 hours of work. So is that gadget worth a week of sitting in an office? The answer is almost always no. Next, gamify your net worth and not your income. High income doesn't make you rich if you spend it all. So track your assets minus your liabilities. And when you buy the truck, your score goes down. When you invest, your score goes up. Play for the score and not the status. And next, choose the million. If you invest $500 a month from the age of 25 to 65, you retire with $1.7 million. And that is the cost of a car payment. You can either have the car or you can have the $1 million. We have been led to believe that the good life is the expensive life. And we have been trained to believe that happiness is something you buy at a store. But look at the data. Rates of depression and anxiety are climbing. We are lonelier than ever. We are working longer hours than ever. We are surrounded by comfort, and yet we are not comfortable. The stock market is at consistently all-time highs, and yet so many people feel poor. This machine works for the economy and it does not work for you. And strange enough, this is going against the grain. It's something radical. In a world built on more, telling yourself that you have enough is being different. And again, the system, it wants you to be hungry and it needs you to be incomplete, but you don't have to be. And that's it. Let me know what you think about America and consumerism and really the world we live in that's quietly draining our lives and wallets in the comments below. And if you enjoy videos like this blend of consumerism, pop culture, and finance, please leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any other videos. Thank you very much for watching. And sometimes it starts with the smallest of things, like that $7 coffee habit that's laced with 3 donuts worth of sugar. So check out the next video on how coffee and sugar have taken over your wallet.